TGIF, everyone. Friday evening weather for Weather Geeks, the final weather for Weather Geeks of January. It has been a month that has featured temperatures that have been pretty close to average when, you add it all up. Sure, we had some colder than average days, some warmer than average days, but it's going to end up being fairly typical in the temperature department, but of course way below average again in the snow department, and that goes along with, so far this entire winter season, only 13 inches of snow at the airport. And if you live south of there, if you live in Mahoning or Columbiana County, you've had quite a bit less than that even. Average up through this date is 35, so we're running about a third, about 33% of our typical snow. Last winter, we had picked up 39.1, and we weren't even into February yet. February, of course, was very, very cold, coldest on record, and it was fairly snowy as well. It wasn't super snowy because we didn't have a lot of big storms in February. The jet stream was too far to the south. All that Arctic air in here, we had a lot of nickel and dime stuff in February and some lake effect even though the lake was pretty much frozen. But we didn't have a lot of big storms last February. So that's where we stand as far as snow. All right, let's talk about the month of February as the month begins on Monday. Here's what we look for as far as precipitation across the country. It should be a somewhat wetter than average February down in the south, as is typical in a winter month in El Nino seasons, strong El Nino. Coastal sections of California might be a little on the wet side, wetter than average, even though, again, in an El Nino, February oftentimes is very wet. It may not be as wet as some El Ninos out in places such as Los Angeles. Drier than average across the northern Rockies, northern tier of the U.S. And, I'm kind of projecting a near average month as far as snowfall and overall precipitation here. I do think that February will be the snowiest month of the winter season, but that's not saying much because December featured almost no snow, and we didn't have very much in January either. So that's not a real bold statement, but I do think that February will bring more snow than the other months so far this winter season. As far as temperatures, it looks pretty warm out west and chilly down in the southern tier. Going to call it average here. Now, this is a little deceiving because I think the way February plays out, and I'll talk about this at the end of the video, it's going to start out very warm early next week. It may end on a mild note, but in between, probably the coldest weather of the entire winter season, starting in about a week and then taking us through Valentine's Day and maybe even beyond that. Pretty long, sustained stretch of cold weather is looking more and more likely. Again, I'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. All right, it's cold this evening. Temperatures flatlined in the mid-20s today. Now the sky is clearing. And as I recorded this at 7:37 p.m., we were down in the lower 20s. We'll end up in the teens. And then temperatures will actually start to rise as we go through the overnight. The reason for that, there's a warm front out here. And this front is getting set to head east. And this is what's going to usher in the air. Tomorrow will be a lot like it was yesterday. We're going to get into the 40s tomorrow, and it's going to be fairly sunny, I think, for the midday and afternoon. Saturday should be a really, really nice day, and I'll tell you, Sunday is not going to be bad either because I don't think it rains much. I'll talk about that more coming up in a minute. Here's where all the Arctic air is across the northern territories of Canada. Chunks of that Arctic air are going to start to get the green light to come south again as we go into the kind of 6 to 10 day period. Here's how the weekend will play out. Futurecast shows our warm front pushing through tomorrow morning. Notice we're into the southerly breezes tomorrow, the cloud state of the north. Boy, walk the dog tomorrow, get the car washed. Beautiful afternoon for the end of January. It's a real bargain. Sunday's going to be a little cloudier, but it'll be even warmer. We're talking upper 40s to maybe 50 or so on Sunday. And as far as rain goes, there might be a passing shower by the end of the afternoon, but it's much more likely well after sunset into the overnight as this front comes east. Now, this front's not going to draw in a lot of Gulf moisture, so rainfall amounts will be fairly piddling with this. More substantial rain event seems likely with the stronger front during the middle of the upcoming week. So let's talk a little more about that. Let me shrink my browser down here so you can see it. That always helps. This storm, we've been talking about this all week. This is going to be a spring-like storm out in the Plain States as we kick off February. Look at this thing in the Four Corners region by Monday evening. Big snowstorm. Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, out into the Plain States by Monday night. And Groundhog Day, this could close interstates, I-70, maybe I-80 out in the Plain States. And as this comes east, it's going to start picking up some Gulf moisture. So while this will continue to be a raging snowstorm on the northern side, on the southern side, again, this is more like a spring storm, I think there's going to be some severe weather in this zone through here. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has a 30% hatched area on day, day 5? That's pretty unusual. That means their confidence is very high in a severe weather episode in here. And even as far north as the Ohio River, there could be some severe weather coming in that direction on Tuesday and into Tuesday evening and overnight. Now for us, I don't think severe weather is much of a concern, but we could hear a rumble of thunder here early Wednesday morning. Here's 1 a.m. Wednesday morning. Here's 7 a.m. Some showers still around, low pressure cruising through Michigan. And Wednesday's going to start warm, but then temperatures will crash by the end of the afternoon as this cold front rolls through. Could see a flurry by the end of the day. And this is going to change the pattern, this system. The pattern from that point forward looks fairly benign for next weekend, for Super Bowl weekend, but it looks pretty cold as well. And out in California for the big game, right now the modeling suggests nothing going on for Super Bowl Sunday. So some good news out there. As far as what happens in the longer range and what I mentioned as far as the middle of February being pretty darn cold, what's going to happen as we go through time here is the polar vortex. Ooh, the polar vortex. It's going to kind of split. And one part of it is going to go across the pole over into parts of Asia, into maybe China and Russia, and maybe down towards Japan as well. And then the other part of the polar vortex is going to take up a position and a home over eastern and southern Canada. Boy, this map looks a lot like last winter did. You got a ridge out here along the west coast. You got a big deep trough over Hudson Bay, a closed upper level low, or if you will, the piece of the polar vortex. So this is a cold-looking sequence of maps here, taking us into the middle of February. Here's the 10th of February. You got, again, one lobe of the vortex over here, and then over here in Canada and into the northeastern U.S. What's this going to do as far as our sensible weather? Take a look at these temperature anomalies as we go through time. Here's the end of next week. The cold air comes east, and then it just is going to park, and waves of Arctic air are going to get the green light to come south. And check out the cold anomalies that start showing up here around the 10th and 11th of February. I mean, yikes. Out there in the plain states, a lot of records can be challenged here. While we won't likely be in the heart of the cold, at least according to the current modeling, here's the 12th and 13th, we're going to be close enough to the heart of the cold that, again, I'm pretty confident that that stretch starting next weekend, and then especially as we head into the second full week of February, around the 10th, 11th, 12th, coldest weather of the season so far. Will there be snow? Too early to figure that out, but again, February I think will ultimately be the snowiest month of the winter. Again, not saying much because we haven't had much. Thanks for watching Weather for Weather Geeks tonight. 21 News at 11. I'll have my 7-day forecast and lots of other good stuff. And I hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you right back here for more geeky fun Monday evening on WFMJ.com/weather and my weather blog, EricWFMJ.com.